Bienvenidos al entrenamiento sobre nutrición deportiva. Por favor, démosle la bienvenida al Dr. Luigi Gratton, vicepresidente de entrenamiento de Herbalife.
Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Luigi Gratton, and I'm so excited, very happy, and I'm proud to be doing this training, talking about nutrition as it applies to physical activity, especially with exercise. We know that exercise and physical activity as part of a healthy lifestyle has become very popular around the world. And a lot of people are now moving more into understanding about how their nutrition can affect their physical performance. So just a little bit of history on me. I am a family medicine physician. I have two specializations. One is in family medicine, another area in clinical nutrition. However, when I was younger, I used to run track and cross country when I was at the university, and I've always been a competitive athlete ever since I was a young teenager. So I really love the application of nutrition as it applies to physical activity and human performance. So in this presentation, we would like you all to understand the benefits of not only training, but really using different types of nutrients to help support your physical activity. Okay, so let's get into it. I hope you enjoy this presentation. I'm going to be talking about a number of things, and we're going to get into this first in terms of the benefits of performing physical activity. Now, this is probably pretty obvious. You know, I have a very good friend who's a physician, and I've known him for over 30 years, and he always jokes, come on, why are we going to exercise? It really doesn't mean much. It's just for vanity. He's always saying, you know, people just want to look good. Actually, the benefits of exercise do include the physical benefits, right? Having toned muscles, being the proper weight, being a healthy weight. But it also has so much to do with all of the organ systems in the body. And let's go through some of them. The first thing is obviously muscle mass. You are blessed, all of us are blessed with our muscle that we carry. But the important thing is we should understand we lose that muscle as we age. So it doesn't matter if you're 30, 40, 50, 60 years of age, muscle doesn't just stick around. We have to exercise it so we can develop the muscle and strengthen the muscle. Another thing is bone mineral density. Our bones, you know, if you ever cut a tree, if you come up on a tree and you see the rings in the tree, that's a lot how your bones look inside. There's levels of density to the bone, the same way a tree has different rings in it, but the bone can actually get very porous as we get older. And so it doesn't matter the age at which you are, exercising helps with bone mineral density. Weight control goals, actually having a healthy weight is so important because it cascades to many other benefits, just maintaining healthy weight. And of course, something I'm very interested in is cardiovascular disease. Keeping a healthy heart, that's the engine inside your car. It's the main pump that moves things all around the body, the blood, the nutrients, and you've got to keep a good cardiovascular system because I'll use the analogy of a freeway. If you're driving to work on the freeway, it's nice when there's no traffic and the cars move in a very smooth functioning way. You don't have any accidents, there's no pileups, and there's no congestion. That's how we want your cardiovascular system to look like. Now, mental health is something that we need to be talking about a lot more. And a lot of people didn't understand the benefits of mental health, but now we know. Sleep is a big part of that. You can improve your sleep, and we're all understanding the benefits of sleep now. So exercise helps with that. Another big area is controlling blood sugar levels. That's not just for general wellness, but it's for longevity. We know that having healthy blood sugar levels means so many other great benefits. And of course, supporting your immune system so that you can stay healthy all throughout your life cycles. Really I should say all months of the year, it's important. Okay, let's keep moving along because we understand that physical activity has all these benefits, but now we want to understand how nutrition plays an important role in helping to support your physical exercise, okay? So now this is pretty incredible. Just the same way you put your gasoline, oil, and your coolant in your car or your motorcycle, or if you have a boat or airplane, whatever your means of transportation is, think of your human body as the universal method of transportation and movement. Every person needs to maintain their well-being and promote health. You want to maintain or control your weight and your body fat. You want to increase your muscle mass, improve your physical appearance, like my friend always jokes, and improve the physical performance, like I like to reinforce. These are all great reasons to encourage people to engage in physical activity. And this is what nutrition can do. It can help support those particular goals that we just touched on. So when you're eating and when you're teaching people, let's say family members, friends, when you're helping them eat, remember to eat with purpose. When you're putting something in your mouth, in your body, you're doing it for a particular reason, specifically some of these things that we're just mentioning here on the slide. Okay, let's go to the next point, which is the importance of nutrition in physical activity. It helps to not only help while you're doing the actual activity, your optimal performance of running or cycling or swimming or whatever you may be doing, but it also plays a key role in recovery. A lot of people don't talk about after the exercise. It's so crucial that if you're breaking down the muscle tissue and you're stressing the body, you have to help repair. You need the body to rejuvenate. Now, we do that in a natural way, but you can help with the natural processes of your body repairing and rejuvenating with good nutrition. Now, another cool thing, it helps to promote the physical adaptation to exercise. So, for example, I've been running since I was a teenager. I'm 54 years old, and I've been running for at least 40 years. What's really cool about running for me is that my leg muscles and my heart and my arms, they have adapted to me running. So if I go running up hills, my body is getting better at running up hills or running on flat streets. So there's adaptation, and nutrition can help with that. Also, very importantly, helps to maintain health. General overall health and well-being is so important. And a lot of people that you may speak with will tell you, I just want to feel good. I want to feel better. And that's important for overall health, right? So what do we need? Well, this is where it really comes down to the specific components that we're choosing to eat every single day. And that includes things that provide energy. Think of carbohydrates and fats. Okay, and that may be like quinoa, rice, beans, all the things, the things that I'm eating throughout the day. I like to reach for my complex carbohydrates, but I'm also having simple carbohydrates that are in the beverages that I'm having, or some of the fresh fruit that I'm eating, or the things that I'm blending up. And of course, fats. A lot of people think fats are bad, but you have literally millions of calories of fats inside your body that are stored. They're your storage areas for energy. And as soon as you get up and you walk around, or you go swimming, or you play football, whatever you're doing, you're burning through fat at a very relatively steady level. Now, energy is one area. Protein is another area, because we need structure. We need something to hold your bones up in your body, or we need something to kick the ball. We need something to throw. So those proteins give us structural support and help our muscles activate and contract and move. Proteins are crucial, whether it's your skeletal muscle kicking something in your legs, or it's your heart muscle pumping the blood around the body. Protein is crucial. It's also important for your skin and your teeth and your hair and everything, all the tissues in the body. So really important as a structural component. We need that, and we need to sort of supply the body with that protein, because it makes up the components of structure. Vitamins and minerals. I like to think of this, when I studied in school, we would always talk about chemical reactions happening in the body. Believe it or not, your body is all these millions and millions of little chemical reactions happening. And for a reaction to happen, you want to have something called a cofactor. This is what I used to talk about when I was in school. Cofactors are simply things that can help to make these reactions occur. So vitamins and minerals can be important cofactors throughout the body to help things go smoothly, to help things run along. Now, of course, hydration. If you've ever driven down the freeway or the highway and you see a car by the side of the road and the car is stopped and there's smoke coming out of the car, what does it mean? It's overheating. The engine has become too hot. Well, we know that they need more coolant. They need more things that are going to cool the car out. That's what hydration does in the body. It helps to get your core heat, your core temperature out to the periphery of your body, and that's usually through sweat. But you need things, fluids moving around your body to keep transportation in the body, to keep joints fluid and viscous. And of course, you want to keep sweat moving around. And of course, blood flowing. And of course, ergogenic aids. What is an ergogenic aid? Well, it simply means something that is going to help you with performance and work. And so if you think about ergogenic aids, such as caffeine, I know that when I have my own different concoctions of caffeine, I enjoy many different types. It can definitely help my performance. And that's what an ergogenic aid is. And there are other types as well that can be used. So very exciting to understand that nutrition can play a key role in what we do every single day. And I want you to remember, you're eating with purpose. Think about what you're eating. You don't want to get up and go to work or get up and run through the city and not eat with purpose, because what ends up happening is you simply eat what's available. Street food, processed food, manufactured food that's high in that's very low in nutrients and high in the bad stuff. So eat with purpose, especially as it pertains to physical activity. Okay, let's talk about the energy sources during exercise. Those are primarily carbohydrates and fats. We mentioned protein earlier, but protein doesn't really provide you with energy. Remember, I said it provides you with structure. It holds your bones up, right? It helps you stand tall or kick the football, as we said. But what's really going to give your body the fuel it needs is the carbohydrates and fats. So for low intensity exercises, and don't worry about the complexity of this slide, I want to keep it very simple. But what's really important is you see the science and you see the data. And that's why we want to show you real raw data or information. If you notice on the right-hand side, the intensity, which is a percent of your VO2 max, of the three bars you're looking at, the one that says 25% VO2 max means it's very low intensity. That would be literally getting up and shuffling or walking around. As soon as you start really going into a walk or jog at conversational pace, if you're on the treadmill, you're going to move to that middle bar, and that's your 65% of your VO2 max, okay? Now, you can imagine going into a full sprint and you're running, that's where you move to that tall bar, the 85% of your VO2 max. So we're looking at three different types of intensity of exercise. I think that's clear. But what I really want you to focus in on are the different colors. Notice the blue-green colors that you'll see in that 25% bar, the one on the left. You'll notice there's the bright green and that aqua green blue. I should probably call that aqua green. You'll notice that there's a huge amount of fat that's being used to burn up and provide energy. And there's very little sugar, a little bit of carbohydrate that you'll notice in that dark forest green. Now let's move to the middle portion. You're going to see a tremendous change. You'll see an expansion of the forest green, which means now we're using more of the fat that's inside the muscles and still some of the circulating fat that you're generating, that you're literally liberating from the fat tissues, and it's becoming important form of energy usage. And we're still using some glucose, you'll notice in that dark green, a little bit more, but we really start relying a lot more on carbohydrate when we go to high intensity. That's in the 85% column. Look at all the blue that expands. That blue at the top, that's a lot of your muscle using the carbohydrates that are stored. And that's why you'll notice marathon runners, when they're running the marathon, they're also taking sips of their sports drink to replenish that carbohydrate, so that when they're finishing that 2-hour marathon, they're making sure that they have some fuel left over. So I don't want this to be too complicated, but I want you to understand, as you're sitting listening to this presentation, you're burning some fat and some carbohydrate. You're going to get up and go outside and walk, you're going to be burning more fats and carbohydrates. And then as you really start running and doing intense exercise, you're leaning more into carbohydrates, and you're still using your fats at a very, what we call basic level, okay? So I think that makes sense. Low intensity exercises, mostly using fat. High intensity exercise, you're gonna rely on both fats and carbohydrates, okay? Very beautiful slide there. Now, as we move on, carbohydrates are so key. Now, I want you to understand this as you talk with other people, your family and your friends, and you tell them that you may be using a sports beverage, or you're having a banana and you're making a smoothie because you're doing it before exercise, and they say, oh, I thought, having a lot of sugar or carbohydrates could be bad. Well, if you're doing physical activity, you're going to need to put the fuel in the gas tank of your body. Okay. So take a look. Energy source beforehand. You want to be making sure you're eating carbohydrates at meals or snacks 1 to 4 hours before you exercise, because that's going to really help increase your body's energy stores. Now, during exercise, like I mentioned, the marathon runner, and you probably saw this if you're watching any sports on television or you're out at a marathon, you'll notice that they're going to be having gradual replacement on a regular basis. So if you exercise very intensely for more than 1 hour, and I use that 2-hour marathon, it's important that you're consuming carbohydrates. And that's why when I run a marathon, every other mile, I'm having my sports drink. Every other mile, I'm making sure that I consume some of my carbohydrates. And then afterwards, the energy source should be eating carbohydrates during the first 4 to 6 hours after you exercise, because you're quickly going to replenish energy in your muscle tissues. Again, think of the analogy of the car on the freeway. If the car runs out of gas, that means you've run out of carbohydrate. If the car is overheating, that means you see smoke coming out of the engine. That means you're not getting enough hydration, right? And along the way, if the car doesn't have the tires and the brakes and all the physical components that are really up to date and working, that means we're not getting sufficient protein and the car is going to break down with its parts. So all of these different areas are very important. And of course, fats are also part of that fuel that we put inside our cars, our mechanisms of movement, right? Okay, let's go to the next slide. So protein, let's talk about the structural components for physical activity. Now, protein is so important because it promotes muscle synthesis and recovery, and it prevents the degradation of muscle protein. And I know a lot of people are very sensitive about this issue. They say, well, I don't want to eat too much protein because I don't want to look like a big muscular guy, a big muscle man. Well, believe me, your body is built a certain way. We have our genetics, which determine the way we look. So it's not going to, you're not going to suddenly wake up after eating tuna or some cheese, eggs, or a chicken or a steak and suddenly grow huge muscles. It just won't happen. But what is important, what's happening inside your body that you can't see, when you're eating these sources of protein, you're breaking the protein down into smaller pieces called amino acids. And those little amino acids, think of little links in a metal chain, if you will. Think of a chain of small metal links. Those small links are the amino acids, and they get reconfigured and repositioned in the body into proteins. And that can be in the muscle tissue, in your arms, in your legs, in your heart, cardiac muscle. All of that is important. It also helps build up your skin, your teeth, believe it or not, your hair, all the organs in the body. So, of course, we think of muscle protein, but protein in the food is very important for other tissues as well, just so you are having a healthy maintenance of your tissues. But when we're thinking about physical performance, we're thinking about muscle protein degradation. You want to have strong muscles. Now, we want to really prefer proteins with a high biological value. And we also want to control the intake of fats. What does biological value mean? Well, think about if I'm having a slice of beef, a piece of fish, a piece of chicken, even a glass of milk. When I consume those proteins, they're very high quality. They have a high biological value. It means that my body is going to absorb the majority of the protein that I'm eating, okay? So high biological value is very good. Now, people who exercise require more protein than people who sit around and do not exercise, because you're really exercising your body and you're using your car, to use that analogy, right? You're using your vehicle of transportation a lot more often. So you're wearing it down, you're putting miles on your tires, and you have to replenish and make sure that it's taken care of. So that's why we actually need more protein, and we're going to mention that in a second. So let's look at different types of exercise. Resistance exercise, okay? Now, if you're running, you're cycling, you're swimming, I'm sorry, I should call that endurance exercise. Endurance exercise, which is aerobic exercise, running, cycling, swimming, you're going to focus on about 1 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. All right. This is going to be on the lower end of protein recommendations. All right. 1 to 1.6 grams. For example, I am about 95 kilos. Let's say 100 kilos to make it simple. Okay. Let's say, for example, I'm 100 kilos. I'm going to eat at least 1 gram for every kilo. So that's 100 grams. Or I can go upwards of 1.6, which would be 160 grams for me. All right. Now, let's forget the endurance exercise. Let's go to intermittent, like football, basketball, tennis, volleyball. Now I'm going to be focusing on 1.4 grams to 1.7 grams of protein for every kilogram of body weight I have. So again, if I'm your customer, your friend, your client, your family member, or your parent, and you're recommending something, you're going to tell me, hey, make sure that I'm getting 140 to 170 grams per day, because I simply took 100 kilos and I multiplied by 1.4 to 1.7. Last example is strength and muscle. This is where I'm going to the gym, I'm lifting weights, and this is what me, Dr. Luigi, I personally do every day. And it's often work because it's hard for me to keep muscle on. So I'm focused on 1.6 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. All right. So again, I'm 100 kilos. I'm going to get 160 to 200 grams of protein every day. And that's usually what I focus it on. Now, I don't get that protein every single day in my diet. It's very hard for me to achieve that, but I'm targeting those numbers. And again, eating with purpose. I'm thinking about what I'm focused in on so that I can get my nutrition in line with my physical activity goals. Okay. So I hope you're understanding that you want to eat with purpose. You want to make sure you focus on certain goals, because the nutrition that you put in your body is going to help you leverage your abilities to do physical activity. Okay. So why are vitamins and minerals important in physical activity? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Energy metabolism, hemoglobin synthesis for your red blood cells, okay? Maintenance of your bone health. Remember, we talked about your bones are like the trees. If you ever see a tree that's cut down in the forest and you look inside the tree, you'll see those thick rings. That's how your bone looks on the outer cortex. We want strong bone, okay? Immune function. You've got to keep your immune system going. And of course, protection against oxidative damage. And that happens so often with exercise. That's what's happening. And of course, muscle function. We want, that vitamins and minerals can help support muscle functioning in very particular ways. Okay. So now I mentioned again my analogy of the car breaking down on the side of the road, and you see the smoke coming out of the car. And that's for a very specific reason. Usually the car engine is getting too hot, it's overheating. And this is where hydration is so key. So now you may see people putting coolant or different types of fluids in the car to get that heat from the core engine outside to the periphery of the car, or in the exhaust. So for us in the human body, it's a little bit different. We've got a core temperature inside of our body, deep inside the middle of your body, and you don't want that to overheat. You don't want your car to be smoking on the side of the road, right? So you've got to get the core temperature heat away to the periphery, and that's what comes out as sweat. So when you're sweating and you're dripping with sweat, it's a very good thing. It means that your cardiovascular system and your regulatory system for heat is working very well. So notice physical activity increases the body temperature. We just talked about that, the core. And then you move that heat out. Whenever water moves to the body, your blood and your sweat moving, and it's transporting heat. And believe it or not, the heat moves to the skin, and that's where you have evaporation and keeps the body cool. So as you'll notice in the red there, the body loses water, but it also loses some of the salts, and we call them electrolytes. Sodium, potassium, magnesium. These are very important electrolytes which function to maintain not only the fluid balance in your body, but it might sound strange, but the same way that you're looking at a car on the side of the road, which has a battery in it, providing it electrical conductivity, the human body doesn't have a battery, but it has electrolytes, which provide a charge. And believe it or not, all the cells in your body are working off these electrical charges. And that's how muscle contractions and performance happens. So you need to have these electrolytes, sodium, potassium, and magnesium, because they help to establish this chemical gradient, believe it or not, this electricity, which helps to power your body. So remember, you see the car on the side of the road, it has a battery in it. Humans, we do not have batteries, but we do have electrolytes and water, which not only help get rid of the heat, hydration, but they help muscle performance and other things, help from cramping, and making sure that you can perform and have a greater effort and doesn't compromise your efforts when you get dehydrated. So think about the fluid and the electrolytes, the sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Very important, but hydration is key. Let's move along. We have hydration during exercise. The moment that you're having your hydration before, every time I exercise, I want to make sure that it's not just during the workout, but I'm preparing, because again, same analogy, car on the side of the road. The reason why the car ran out of fuel or ran out of fluids is because it wasn't properly prepared. You've got to put all the fluids in your body hours before you're doing the exercise, the performance, okay? So 2 to 4 hours beforehand, making sure that you drink plenty of fluids. I like to wake up early in the morning and go to the gym. As soon as I wake up, I drink a lot of water, okay? I also have my own sports beverages that I like to have, whether it's a shake, whether it's a certain tea or electrolyte beverage that I have, but I will often do that before I work out. So for every 5 to 10 milliliters of fluid, you're going to have that per kilogram of body weight, okay? So remember, I'm about 100 kgs. That means I would have about 500 to 1,000 milliliters for my size, okay? So that's beforehand. You're going to distribute that over. Now, during the exercise, that's 30 minutes or like 30 minutes before the exercise to the actual time I'm doing the exercise. I'm going to increase from 5 to about 6 to 8 milliliters of fluid per kg of body weight per hour that I'm exercising. And again, in my experience, I'm not running a lot of marathons anymore like I was when I was younger. But when I did run marathons, that's exactly what I consumed. I would have 6 to 8 mLs of fluid. Now I was much lighter. I was around 80 kgs back then because I was super skinny, didn't have any muscle except in my legs. But this is exactly the amount you want, 6 to 8 milliliters of fluid per kg. Now, after you finish exercising, this is where you can increase. You're going to have about 1.5 liters of water or sports beverage for every kilogram of weight lost. As you're exercising, you're sweating and you're losing a lot of water weight. So you want to make sure you replenish that water weight with your hydration, with your beverages, okay? And of course, getting those electrolytes in there. Okay, so let's talk about sports supplements. And this is really kind of something that I find very powerful, because sports supplements, by definition, is a product. It can be a food, a beverage, a tablet, a capsule that can provide different nutrients to the body. Those nutrients include protein that we talked about. Remember the structural component of your body. It holds things together. For the car analogy, we said, you know, the metal in your car, the tires, the brakes, all the physical capacity of your structure. Okay, the carbohydrates are going to be an energy source. That's like the gasoline that we're putting in the car. Vitamins, minerals, the amino acids, or other substances, all of these are intended to complement the diet and contribute to athletic performance. So this means if I'm having a steak or I'm having eggs and cheese and milk, that's sort of like the basis of my diet, and plenty of my fruits and vegetables. And then in addition to that, I can have these particular things which will help support my performance. So hopefully that makes sense. We want people to understand that you're eating your diet as your base, your healthy fruits and vegetables and all the things you're getting in, and then you can supplement with these vitamins, minerals, amino acids, carbohydrates, all these wonderful things that help support your exercise. Okay, let me give you some examples now. One of the wonderful products that I'm a huge proponent of, I really love, is called CR7 Drive. Now, you'll see an image of Cristiano Ronaldo on the cover of this product because he actually helped create this product in partnership with Herbalife. And he was very important in the development of the flavoring of the product, some of the actual ingredients. It's pretty amazing. So I'm very proud of this product because I know that we did this in partnership with Cristiano Ronaldo, and I'm such a huge fan of him. Now, what does this product look like? Well, it's a powdered mix, and it's prepared as a sports drink. It's got electrolytes, the things we talked about, the sodium, the potassium, the magnesium. It's got the carbohydrate mix. That's the energy that your muscles are relying on. And it also has B vitamins, which are very important for the body. Now, the wonderful thing in CR7, we've got a certain number of calories per serving, which is going to really help determine getting that fuel into the muscle tissue, right? And we think about 13 grams of carbohydrates per serving. It's 50 calories per serving and 13 grams of carbohydrates per serving. Now, we have a mix of different sources of carbohydrates, and we don't need to get into the technicalities of all the different carbohydrates, but just understand that some of them can be different sizes. Carbohydrates can look differently when you look at their chemical composition. And that means some are absorbed very, very quickly, and some of them give sustained energy. And so we like blending carbohydrates so that you can see different types, all right? Now, electrolytes, sodium, potassium, and magnesium. We discussed that earlier, and that's really important to understand that they have those functions. Remember, we talked about the electrical charge in the battery, but we don't have a battery in our human bodies, but we do have electrolytes, which help to establish fluid balance. They help to establish an electrical charge in the cells, and that simply means that you're going to perform better, okay? And also, muscle cramping, all the things we mentioned earlier. And then, of course, a B complex of vitamins, which has B1 and B12. And that's wonderful because those B vitamins can actually help support the body. Now, we recognize that CR7 is sold all throughout the region. You may be living in a particular country. We have you may see this product, and if you're traveling around other countries, it may have a slightly different formula, but this is basically how it looks. It's an incredible product. Okay, let me move on. Talking about electrolytes, as I've been touching on, they replenish the fluids, and you want to replenish fluids and electrolytes that's lost in the body as we sweat. So I don't know if any of you have ever gone for a long walk in the heat, but you may notice sometimes that your sweat, if you ever taste it, I know it sounds strange, but if you taste your own sweat, you'll taste the salt. It tastes salty because there's excess sodium loss that can lead to cramping in the muscle tissue. And that's why we want to make sure we keep that replenishing sodium. Potassium is so important. Everyone is always worried about sodium, whether it's the amount in the food supply or how much we're getting, but we often don't talk about potassium. And potassium is so important for promoting water retention within the cell and helping with proper hydration. It's one of the best kept secrets that we should be talking about more. Love talking about potassium and potassium-rich nutrients, potassium-rich foods and supplements. Now, magnesium is another thing. High-performance athletes may require about 10 to 20% more magnesium than sedentary people, since strenuous exercise increases the loss through urine and sweat. So whenever we're voiding, if we're going to the bathroom or walking and sweating, you're going to lose that magnesium. You got to make sure you replenish it. Now, we talked about the mix of carbohydrates, some that are very short, they're absorbed very quickly, some that are absorbed slower, and that means that you have a little bit more of a sustained energy release. So we can blend different carbohydrates in our foods, in our supplementation, and those different types provide energy to the muscles to maintain performance. So you'd want quick energy, and you'd want more sustained energy for long duration exercises, okay? So that's the nice thing about blending the carbohydrates. And B complex vitamins, these contain vitamins B1 and B12, and these contribute to normal energy metabolism. So wonderful blend of different things to look at here, B vitamins, electrolytes, and the carbohydrates. Okay, let's look at the benefits of a carbohydrate mix. This really allows the body to use the multiple methods that we've been talking about to obtain energy either quickly and making the most of the carbohydrates coming from outside the body. Remember, you already have carbohydrates stored in your muscle tissue right now as you're listening to me speak. Whether you drink a anything with carbohydrates in it or not, it's actually sitting in your muscle, and you also have carbohydrates stored in your liver. And so these two areas in the body is like your two major sources of your gas tanks. And that's where you're actually getting some of the carbohydrate from. But also when you take more carbohydrate during exercise or before and after, you're helping to support. All right, so now there's different types. You'll notice that there's, and I won't get too detailed here. Let's just mention that some are very high glycemic index. And the high glycemic index means that your body absorbs it very quickly, okay? It causes a spike in the blood sugar, and then your body reacts with certain hormones to drive that into the cells. There's also what we call the moderate glycemic index. That's sort of the middle level, which doesn't cause as much of a spike in the blood sugar. It's more of a moderate spike. And then, believe it or not, there's a low glycemic index. I always say when I'm counseling people on nutrition, they ask me, well, what can I eat that's carbohydrates that's going to have a low glycemic index? When you think of things like, lentils, someone has a bowl of lentil soup, it's relatively low GI because they're fibrous and it takes time for the body to access that carbohydrate. With sports drinks, you want to think the same way. What's going to go quickly into the bloodstream, what's going to go in a moderate speed, and what's going to have a low glycemic index. So we can focus on all these types of benefits, having fast, medium, and slow, and it helps to maintain the blood sugar so that you're getting a steady amount of fuel to the exercising muscle. Remember, the important thing is, and I'm going to go back to the car analogy, you don't want the car to run out of gas and be stuck on the side of the road, okay? We just talked about hydration, the car overheating and smoking. You don't want the car to run out of gas. So this is where you want to replenish the carbohydrate. There's plenty of fuel. Your body will continue to run at optimal performance, okay? Also, these things are going to help maintain the motor skills and cognitive performance during exercise. You may have seen some of these endurance races on television where at the end of the race, the person looks like they can't even think straight and they're a little bit confused. Yeah, that happens if they're not getting sufficient carbohydrate. And of course, we want to promote intestinal absorption of the liquids very quickly during exercise. You've got to get fluid in. Okay, I think you all understand the points. I just want you to make sure that it's clear of what we're talking about. Okay, now, when it comes to consuming these things, particularly CR7 drive, before physical activity, we're replenishing glycogen and ensuring proper hydration. During physical activity, helping to maintain adequate hydration and help maintain blood glucose levels. And then after physical activity, to help replenish lost fluids and electrolytes, as well as glycogen stores, okay? So there you have, you may see an image here of Cristiano Ronaldo, our incredible elite athlete who helped partner to make the product. You see him holding it. And what a wonderful ambassador for this product, because I got to meet him once here in Los Angeles, California. Years ago when he was playing for Real Madrid, he was touring around doing these friendly competitions. And I have to tell you, he is such an expert in his own nutrition. I mean, he is such a beautiful example of a man who takes care of his body, truly like a high performance race engine. You know, I've been talking about a car on the side of the road. Think of him as a Formula One race car, right? And everything he does, talk about eating with purpose. He thinks specifically about what he puts in his body because he needs his engine to perform at the highest level. And by the way, I have to tell all of you, when I met him, I was very jealous because I thought he was going to be short. You know, a lot of soccer players are very small. He's not, you guys. He's very tall. He's tall, he's handsome. There were, you know, every woman in the lobby of the hotel was chasing him. But what an incredible ambassador for nutrition. Besides him being the supermodel, he really eats with purpose and he knows exactly what he's putting in his body. And we should follow the same methods. Think about what we're eating, choosing the nutrients that we put in our body. I'm not going to look like Cristiano Ronaldo ever, but I can at least eat with purpose and get the same benefits from these nutrients, right? So let's go on to the next slide. Okay, now rebuild strength. This is a wonderful product that can support muscle mass recovery and building of the muscle tissue. And this is fundamentally different. We've been talking about hydration, and we've been talking about the electrolytes and all the good things that you can drink. Now consider something like rebuild. This is really reinforcing the idea of the structural components of your muscle tissue. You need muscle to move, to perform, to kick the ball, to run or swim. And this is what's going to help replenish the muscle, make it strong structurally, and make it and help it to repair. Because every time you exercise, you're actually causing oxidation, oxidative damage, and structural damage in the muscle. And so we need to fix it. Okay. So think about the components of this shake, of this particular product, Rebuild Strength. 25 grams of milk protein for every serving. And milk protein helps recover and build muscle mass. Okay. Now, part of this wonderful blend with milk protein has glutamine and the branch chain amino acids. And I can talk about those in just a second, but those are amino acids that specifically help with muscle recovery. It also has a mix of carbohydrates that are a source of energy, and they can help replenish muscle glycogen. It has the antioxidants, vitamins C and E, and there are also B vitamins that support energy metabolism. It also has iron. Iron can support your red blood cell production because we need healthy red blood cells, right? Also has electrolytes, which we've been talking about, because those are lost through sweating, perspiration. And we know that there's the wonderful thing is that we have certain certifications on these products to make sure that they're not only, parts of our good manufacturing process, but we also want to ensure that people have confidence about the ingredients that we're putting in the product. So you can always look for certain certifications on the label of your products. Now, I would like to point out no artificial flavors, no artificial colors, and no artificial sweeteners in this product. So the wonderful thing with Rebuild Strength, it's really quite, I think of it as one of my premium ways to get my protein back in the body, okay? Now, what can Rebuild Strength be used for? Well, there are different types of exercise, and it can be used for everything, because it doesn't matter what you're driving your car for the purpose. If you're using it to go on a trip, if you're using it, if you have a truck that you do off-road racing on, or if you're simply touring around the city with family, it doesn't matter. Whatever the goal is, you need protein to help support the structure. So if it's resistance, endurance exercise, which is first, endurance would be running, cycling, swimming. Think about all the things that require aerobic capacity. That's when you're breathing and you're really doing sustained exercise, okay? You're gonna need protein, and Rebuild Strength can help support that. If you're doing what we call intermittent exercises, football, basketball, tennis, volleyball, those are sort of, I often call them crossover sports where you're mixing things in. You're going to need Rebuild Strength. You can use it for that. And of course, gym and weightlifting, strength and muscle building exercises are going to be especially important. This is what I try and do every day. I actually blend things together using my weightlifting, and then I go for a run or a jog or a long walk or a hike. So you can use Rebuild for any three or a combination of these things, because it doesn't matter the type of car you drive, it doesn't matter the type of body you have or the type of exercise you do, you need to have these high quality proteins in your body. Okay. What are the proteins? Speaking of high quality protein, well, it's milk protein, and that's a dairy source. And the cool thing about milk protein is that it has different types of ingredients. It has fast acting components and slower digesting components. So the fast digestion is something we call whey protein concentrate and whey protein isolate. And that simply means that that portion of the milk protein, the dairy protein, gets quickly absorbed in the body, which allows it to get quickly incorporated into the muscle tissue, I should say, incorporated in a faster way. Now, there's also a slower digestive process, which means the milk proteins, we call it casein, and that casein protein gets a little bit slower digested, and it gets incorporated into the muscle tissue a little slower. And these are very tremendous benefits for having these two approaches. Fast and slower means you get a very quick, and then you get a sustained supply of these amino acids. Remember I said, imagine a big metal long chain, a big chain that you would see around a gate. Well, those individual small metal links in the chain are the amino acids that happen in protein. And those go into the blood and they get reassembled into different tissues. That helps to promote recovery and muscle building after exercise. Okay, so that's the beauty of Rebuild Strength. Fantastic product. One of my favorite products in Herbalife. You know, I have many, many products that are my favorites, but this is definitely one of the ones that I always try and travel with. Okay, the proteins in Rebuild Strength. We've touched on this before. They have very high biological value, low fat content per serving, which is nice. They provide something called the branched chain amino acids. We call them the BCAA. I know in the way this is being translated and interpreted, you'll probably have specific definition of these BCAAs, but they're basically 3 specific amino acids. Remember the links in the protein, links in the chain, 3 specific amino acids, which are very important for muscle development. Okay. Now, scientific studies have shown that whey protein has better effects on protein synthesis in relation to exercise compared to other proteins. So this is why we know that whey is very effective. A lot of people ask why. We simply don't know. Mother Nature created this and we're not sure why it happens. But if you look at a combination of whey protein and the milk protein concentrate, like casein and the whey protein isolate, this combination of these 3 different components generate a very fast and a sustained supply of amino acids. So remember, we're eating with purpose when we're getting ready for performance nutrition, right? Think about the reason why I like this product, because I know there are 3 different components of these types of protein, and they have a slow and fast effect, which are going to give me immediate and sustained protein. Okay. The other nutrients in Rebuild Strength, well, there's carbohydrates. Those are in the form of different types of carbohydrates. You don't need to be concerned with the very, very technical aspects, but understand that the combination of these different types of carbohydrates, they really help to supply immediate energy, and that can be turned into also a sustained energy. So we can get immediate energy and a long-term energy for long-term exercises, okay? And again, carbohydrate storage is determined when the athlete, when they fatigue out. We call this hitting the wall. When I used to run marathons, everyone would hit the wall at mile 20, and that's usually a very specific indication when you run out of carbohydrate. You run out of all that storage in the muscle tissue, and you're really relying on your sports beverages for the remainder of the race, right? So you probably heard that before. Oh, I hit the wall when I was doing my long cycling event. Okay, those are the carbohydrates. We move to the antioxidant vitamins and minerals, particularly vitamins C and E. As we increase our exercise intensity, we increase the consumption of oxygen. You may remember I showed you 3 different bars with a 25% and 65%, upwards of 80%, and those were different measures of oxygen consumption. We call that the VO2 max. And when we look at those different types of oxygen consumption, it simply speaks to intensity and oxidative stress. That happens in the muscle and other cells in the body. So we're stressing the engine. Again, using the car analogy, we're revving the engine very high, and we're really putting a lot of pressure on the systems, okay? And we need the antioxidants to help kind of cool things out, to keep things in equilibrium. So antioxidant nutrients, they play an essential role since they protect the cell membranes from damage, okay? So keeping the cell in its basic state to make sure it can function optimally. In addition, we know that adequate consumption of vitamin C promotes the normal functioning of the immune system, because athletes, and consider yourself an athlete, if you work out even once a week, you are an athlete, right? Maybe not professional, but you're an athlete when you're exercising. So your body can suffer, your immune system can get worn down, and you don't want to be at risk of getting sick. So keeping these nutrients like antioxidants in the body is good. Finally, the B vitamins, B1, B6, B5, they're involved in energy release mechanisms during exercise. Remember, we talked about all these chemical reactions happening in your body, and you need these, what we call cofactors, These vitamins and minerals are vitamins play as cofactors in these energy mechanisms. So they participate in the construction and repair of muscle tissue. And some studies suggest that physical activity can even double the requirement for these vitamins. So that's why we know we like to focus on B vitamins. They're very important. Okay. And let's go to other nutrients: sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. We talked about the sodium and potassium. Remember, if you sweat, it may be a little bit salty. If you actually can check your sweat, you'll notice, wow, it's got sodium and potassium in there. But they help regulate fluid balance and nerve transmission, very importantly. And we want to make sure, because they're lost in your perspiration, that you're replacing. Calcium is something that we need to talk about all the time, because not only is calcium important for bones, it's also important for your teeth, because it helps with the formation and the maintenance of your bones and teeth. It also helps with your blood cells when they coagulate, when you make a clot. That's important to form clots, okay? And of course, nerve transmission and muscle contraction. Calcium is key. Magnesium is very much the balancing act for calcium. When we think magnesium, think about all the metabolism that happens in the body. There are literally hundreds of different reactions in your human body that magnesium plays a part in. Whether it's carbohydrate metabolism, protein, fat metabolism, magnesium does so many things, from the heart to the muscle tissue to the brain. It's incredible. So please, please make sure you're getting sufficient magnesium. It also helps to regulate cardiovascular, muscular, immune function, among other things. So lots of stuff. What I love about these products is that we have magnesium as an important part of it. And iron, we've been talking about iron for your blood cells. When you're making red blood cells, and you may not know this, but your blood carries oxygen around the body. And imagine you're going to run a marathon or do a bike race or just have fun swimming. You need to have your red blood cells functioning optimally to carry the oxygen, and they release the oxygen in the muscle tissue. And that oxygen is used by exercising muscle to keep going, right? So we want to make sure your red blood cells are taken care of. That's where iron helps to form the hemoglobin and the myoglobin in the muscle tissue. So the oxygen transport capacity is very important for physical activity. And we know that iron is also part of the enzymes necessary for the release of energy. Okay, so I'm giving you a lot of information on these specific areas, but you definitely want to focus in on these so you understand why it's so important to rebuild, to use a product like this, because it helps to really support. Now, there is a very important thing to consider when you're exercising after you've finished. And we talked about this earlier, but there's a recovery time. There's a recovery process where your body is very much looking to repair. The analogy I always use is, imagine you're getting work done in your house or your apartment. And every time you exercise, you're breaking a hole in the wall. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, am I breaking a hole in my muscle? Well, no, you're not really breaking the muscle tissue, but you are damaging the muscle tissue. Oxidative stress happens and the muscle fiber is damaged. And so we need to repair it with nutrients. But if you're not eating the right things, remember we said eating with purpose. I try and eat like I know Cristiano Ronaldo's eating with purpose. When I finish my exercise, I'm looking for that high quality protein. I'm looking for the carbohydrates and all the nutrients we spoke of, because there is a good time when my body wants to repair. And now that I've damaged the muscle, my body's looking for nutrients to start fixing and replenishing the body, okay? So think about really getting these nutrients in your body after you exercise, because they help to develop the muscle mass, repair the damaged tissue, and recover the carbohydrate glycogen stores that you've lost, so that you have energy the next time you go, okay? But not to get too scientific, but just understand that there's damage that's been done, but your muscle can come back by repairing, replenishing, and you can even rebuild and come back stronger. Okay, let's talk about a product, Liftoff. So Liftoff is a phenomenal product, one of my favorites. It's really more than an energy drink because it's formulated with a unique blend of ingredients. Not only does it has the caffeine, remember I mentioned that you can extract caffeine from different sources: coffee, green tea, black tea, guarana. These all have natural caffeinated extracts in them, caffeine as an ingredient. And we can combine those things. But what's really cool is that we actually have Panax ginseng